Hello friends, how's it going? It's Joel here with another video. As you can tell, I am reacting to the official MLB 2024 stadium rankings from worst to best. This is because of me pointing out in a recent video about how aren't you like $1 million companies? Shouldn't you have better? So I think this might be from John Boy again. Hi-Fi John. Yeah, Hi-Fi John. This is Depressed Ginger, I think the video is from. So it's a 25-minute video, so not going to waste too much time. So let's just jump in.
My official MLB Stadium rankings for 2024.
That looks sick.
It is always a much anticipated video.
Oracle Park. I do not know where that is.
Start of the 2024
that looks beautiful
season,
wherever that is.
Ranking every single MLB stadium from 30th to 1st, beginning with the worst stadium in MLB. And it is, of course, the Oakland Coliseum, the final remaining multi-purpose stadium.
It looks alright though.
Mount Davis completely blocking any view. You have no semblance of built-up exterior. You've got far too much seating, a massive amount of foul territory, a weird concoction of seats out beyond right and left field. This truly is the worst stadium in MLB and will continue to be, possibly for the next few years if the A's do get a lease extension, but who knows? Maybe this is the final year I'll be renting.
To be
this
fair,
stadium with
the setup isn't great. I will give him that. They should swap the diamond around. That's what I think personally. I don't know if they could do that. They swap it back, as he said. There's a lot of people here, right? And that's where everybody's going to want to catch the ball. And then you can build your wall up if you want along here or whatnot, and just like cut some of these seats out and just build up a wall, blah, blah, blah. But look, there's like, is it multi-purpose? This doesn't look like it would be an NFL stadium as well, would it? It is a very weird
ballpark next year. The Oakland Coliseum might be on its last leg in terms of being a stadium, and could be at this time next season.
It is very strange. Of being very strange.
Moving on to number 29, it is Tropicana Field, the final remaining
it looks
fully
like
domed, no
Miami
natural light stadium in baseball. Home of the Tampa Bay Rays, the stadium is simply not good. Originally built in the early 1990s, it is a cardinal sin in the year 2024 not to have any natural light.
It looks strange as well. It looks fake.
It looks like a disconfigured circus tent. And you do also have the catwalk up above, where baseballs tend to hit off of, only adding to the clownishness of Tropicana Field. They also have decided to straight up close their upper deck because of the terrible attendance, and averaged under 20,000 people for both of their playoff games last year. The stadium, the area in St. Petersburg, it's seen better days for sure, and it is the second worst stadium in MLB. Moving on to number 28, it is Guaranteed Rate Field, home of the Chicago White Sox. A bad area, a bad stadium. That is the combination that creates the third worst stadium. The White Sox hoping to move out of this area completely and not invest any more money with possibly a new stadium by the year 2030. Look, Guaranteed Rate Field, there's not one thing special about it. It's the issue to where there's just nothing special about this ballpark. You can say the pinwheels, but the pinwheels are such a microscopic section of it beyond the scoreboard out in center field. I'm just not seeing anything that's catching my attention when it comes to this baseball stadium. And the surrounding area in which it's located only adds to the low ranking. It is the third worst stadium in baseball. Moving on to number 27, it is Angels Stadium, the former multi-purpose stadium. It got a mid-1990s renovation, fully turning it into baseball, and they did add a very nice rock water.
Wouldn't you want people here? Isn't that way? Like, wouldn't that be a good thing? Because then when people hit the ball, it's like they can catch it, blah, blah, blah. Nobody's catching the ball back here. I don't know. That's just it's just a weird
field, but other than that, this stadium is completely obsolete. It still has its original seat design from the early 1960s when it first opened. One glance at this stadium from an aerial view will expose its lacking interior and just complete obsolete upper deck design. It comes in at number 27. Moving on to number 26, Chase Field, home of the Arizona Diamondbacks. It does
It looks
resemble a
cool.
hangar from the exterior, yes. The interior, you've got the retractable roof. Unfortunately, like most MLB stadiums, it's rarely open, so I do have to kind of consider this stadium a de facto dome. It's just too hot in the desert during the summer. The big issue with this is that you would think that the designers of this stadium would realize that, hey, it's going to be very hot. The roof is probably always going to be closed. Let's allow for some nice natural light windows. They didn't do a good job of that. I mean, they do have windows that open, but
They
they're
do look
typically
cool.
only open when the retractable roof is open, which is very rare. Also at Chase Field, you've got the massive upper deck that really looks like it's about to eat someone. It's so big. And you do have the terrible center field design with the scoreboard connected to the center field wall. It's tacky. Whenever a home run gets hit to center field, it bounces back onto the field. It's very minor league, and it's cheap. They're in talks right now with the city. Chase Field certainly needs when it comes in at number 26. Moving on to number 25, it is American Family Field. Now, this is a stadium that is getting a $500 million renovation, and it certainly needs it. And what do you know? Just like I said with the
Looks
vertical
New York-y.
scoreboard where center field is connected to the scoreboard, this stadium has that exact same thing. I really don't understand the outfield seating configuration of this stadium. It almost looks multi-purpose. Nothing's really connected. If you look down the left field line, there's bullpens, and then there's like a little section of seats. It just looks really discombobulated for a stadium that is and always has been MLB specific. And I will give the stadium credit. It does have a very nice exterior. The roof, the retractableness of it is also very unique. It almost looks like a daddy long leg looking over top. I'm going to put it at number 25. We'll see if a renovation can move it up at all in the coming years. Moving on to number 24, it is Nationals Park, probably the most boring stadium in baseball. Nationals Park, I really don't have any crazy issues with it other than the fact that they seemingly went very...
For me, like this, I know, like, I don't know how many people go to watch who are the Nationals, I'm assuming, probably. Why is this always in every ballpark very limited seating? I don't get it. There's a lot of room here for seating.
Very safe on the design of this stadium. I'm just not seeing the
like, you got so much here
needed for me to rank the stadium within the top 15. It
you
comes
got nothing here
at number 24. Moving on to number 23, it is Comerica Park.
Again.
So Comerica
Nothing.
Park desperately needs a big time renovation. They have moved the walls in several times. They've got a terrible double wall out in center field where you can still see where the original wall is. The split upper deck is fine. I have no issues with that. The exterior is extremely hollow. Not surprising considering it was built in the early 2000s. But the big cardinal sin with this one is the just lack of uniqueness in terms of the outfield seating. All they would really need to do is add a small section beyond right field above the lower section of seating. Add a little section. It only has to be 7 or 8 rows deep. It'll add depth to the ballpark. But right now, Comerica Park, for me, there's just nothing special about it. It's going to come at number 23. Moving on to number 22, it is Globe Life Field. Yes, the brand new Globe Life Field.
Yeah,
listen,
it looks
stadiums, MLB stadiums are very good.
I like it's got more decking though. It's got more seating. I like that. That's good.
I take a lot of different factors into account when it comes to ranking.
It's very
stadium,
strange
and let's be honest,
though.
A lot of these stadiums
like,
have great amenities.
To me, it doesn't look like these are made for baseball. Like, it looks like they've built the exterior and then they went, we should put a baseball field in here. And they just built whatever they could within that confined space. It looks so strange to me.
As is, I understand it's brand new. I get it. The exterior of this stadium is a cardinal sin. It's going to age horribly. I think this stadium in 15 or 20 years, they're going to talk about replacing it. I don't know what they were thinking with a modern ballpark that was built in 2020. It does look exactly like a grill when it's closed. I will give it credit. It's got kind of those floating sections out beyond left field. That's a cool, unique factor to the ballpark. But you've got virtually no good batter's eye in center field. It's just a wall. You would think nowadays they would at least be able to tailor that up, put some type of, shrubbery out there, some trees, some nice landscaping. Take care of it. Give us something, especially considering it's the newest MLB stadium. They really swung and missed on this one. It comes in at number 22. At number 21, it is Progressive Field. Now, I do have a soft spot for Progressive Field, but at this point, with the butchering of the right field upper deck, it's going to come in pretty low, and it keeps falling every year seemingly on my list. Now, they did recently give the right field upper deck another renovation. I'm very concerned about the renovation. I guess we'll see what happens, but they seemingly have exposed the supports similar to FedEx Field, if you know the terrible NFL stadium, like they did with their upper deck, so that could be concerning, but maybe it'll be an improvement. Let's be honest. With how bad those shipping containers were out there, anything else would be an improvement. I really don't mind this stadium, although another thing I will say that I hate is the horizontal bullpens, where the bullpens go horizontal and not vertical towards the field. It just takes up so much seating space, and I understand they're trying to cut the capacity. That's been one of the big things with Progressive Field down to 34K. They do have a nice center field batter's eye area. They've got some nice trees up there. And then in left field, you've got
why
the
you
uniqueness
don't
of the
want
wall
people to come
with the bleacher seats that I think fit the stadium extremely well. They fit the scoreboard very well, kind of the angled off sections. And then to the left of that, you also do have the home run porch, which is another cool and unique factor. But overall, this stadium's going to come in at number 21. Moving on to number 20, it is Minute Maid Park. So this is another one. The issue is it's practically a dome. You did have the renovation out in center field, moving the fences in, the removal of Tails Hill, something very sad. Look, I like the train. It's an amazing ballpark cork. It's got a decent exterior, the brick design, kind of an average upper deck, average seating design out in right
Do
field.
Americans like brick design? Is that a thing he's doing?
I will say something I noticed with this stadium
doesn't really
when the
matter
roof
too
is
much,
on,
but
and
I
it's
didn't
on about
move my
90%
camera.
of the time, the left field glass design really needs to be replaced. It's an obsolete design. If they had a modern glass design out beyond left field, it almost looks like plastic, more so than glass out beyond left field. Reminds me a lot of the American Family Field glass design back beyond their outfield. So maybe they'll do a renovation to that and it'll move up, but for me it comes in at number 20. Moving on to number 19, it is Great American Ballpark, home of the Cincinnati Reds. There's nothing wrong with this stadium. I don't mind the split upper deck. I like the red seats. I like the fact that it's an offensive
It
haven.
looks like
It
looks like a baseball
but there's just nothing real
park.
special about it. So for me, it comes in at 19. I really can't say anything too negative about it, though. It's a fine stadium.
That's a
It
cool
just
building
goes kinda
behind
into
it,
the
whatever
average
building that is.
category
That's
for me.
cool.
Moving on to number 18, it is the Rogers Center.
This is more what I was expecting. Like, this is cool. Like, you got decking seats. This I don't understand, but the rest of it's kind of cool.
Multi-purpose stadium. They officially custom fit it for MLB with a huge multi-year renovation that happened over the last 2 years. Of course, you've got to mention the hotel. It's an amazing feature. It's going to move it up on my list. The exterior of this stadium, however, resembles the United Center. It is basically a concrete shell. Not a fan of the exterior. There's some uniqueness to it. They've got the upper deck sections, which have been taken out in right and left field. They've replaced those with bar areas, modernized those nicely. Certainly, there's been improvements to this stadium. About 5 or 6 years ago, it would probably be in the mid-20s, but it's moved up to number 18, kind of into the average tier. I do think it's aged, of course, and considering the stadium originally opened as a multi-purpose, I think being the 18th best stadium at this point is very good for the Rogers Center. It certainly gets added points for the hotel feature, which obviously is one of one when it comes to MLB stadiums. Moving on to number 17, it is Kauffman Stadium. I really do like Kauffman Stadium and the design of it. It's crazy. It was built in 1973. The important fact with Kauffman Stadium, it got a huge renovation back around the year 2008 where they added seating, and I just think it looks so modern, kind of how it's
That looks
done,
really cool.
where the
Yeah, I don't
waterfalls
mind
are
that.
kind of surrounded by seating, especially
Yeah,
out
you
in
got
left
more
field.
seating.
There's
Like, that's a
seating
good
above
idea.
waterfall
To
and
have
a bar area. Look,
all
don't get
this
me
shit up
wrong.
here. What have
Kauffman
I done?
Stadium, if they actually would have kept it,
All this
it
up
would
here.
probably need a complete redo of the upper deck. That's just an obsolete design.
Wow.
But in general,
Rest of it's
the
pretty
reason
alright.
this
I don't
stadium
mind the rest of it.
is not due to how bad the stadium is. It's due to the location. The Royals want to move downtown, reach more fans easier, and that is why this stadium is likely going to be going by the wayside when the lease is up in 2030. But still a solid stadium with all the waterfalls and the seating surrounding it in the outfield.
Cool.
Very peaceful. Moving on to number 16, it is Citi Field. So Citi Field, I think, probably has a top 2, top 3 exterior stadium design in baseball. The brick is just amazing. The windows, the symmetry of it. When it comes to the interior, I do find it a little obsolete. It's got an obnoxious left field upper deck that doesn't look very good. It does have the apple in center
Yeah, it
field,
is
but
weird.
I'm just not a big fan of the interior of Citi Field. And they also do have a complete mess out in right center because they've moved the fences in, and there's dead zones out in right center where there's really nothing there of the fence change. Moving on to number 15, it is T-Mobile Park, the most average stadium in baseball. I do think this is a kind of an accurate ranking. There are some good things about T-Mobile Park. There are some bad things. I think it kind of grades out overall as average. Now, certainly the most unique thing about it is the way the retractable roof works to where it's...
Like, again, like, it looks like they've built the fucking thing, and they just put baseball. Like, what's all this? Well, I'll show you like our stadium for AFL is a bit different, but like this, all of this stuff is just weird to me. Like, why is that all there? And then like you've like crammed it in and chucked nothing here because you've got no space because there's a road here.
It's just an umbrella, which enables the stadium to be open a lot more. The roof is normally open about 75% of the time because they don't climate control it. There's really no incentive to close the roof unless it actually is raining in Seattle. And you do have the kind of obsolete right field upper deck where barely anyone sits in. There's been talks of possibly a renovation, maybe a bar installed up there. We'll see what they end up doing. I've always thought their center field bleacher seating was just really random. I guess Coors Field kind of has something similar to that, but it's just its own little section area directly
it's just
center field. Another thing that I
different.
think is a big missed opportunity for this stadium is not putting up massive pine trees beyond center field. It just fits the Pacific Northwest vibe really well. It acts as a great batter's eye. You would think that'd be something that they would consider doing. It's got some bad things. I think it grades out kind of as average at number 15. Number 14 is going to be Yankee Stadium. I did want to put Yankee Stadium a little bit higher, but I just couldn't justify it. Look, I do think Yankee Stadium gets an unfair amount of criticism. After all, these are the New York Yankees. Everyone hates them. They were kind of put in a tough spot, though, to honor the original Yankee Stadium, build something in kind of a similar model. New Yankee Stadium is
That's not terrible.
criticized for
That's
being
all right.
too boring and corporate, but they were really confined. You know, if they did something completely different, people would also be mad and say, oh, that's not tradition. So yeah, Yankee Stadium has a nice clean exterior. The interior
That's
of it,
all right.
of course, is completely symmetrical.
Like, it
They
is-
try
it
to
is
honor
quite
the upper
boring.
deck by doing something similar.
It's just a
but kinda
ballpark,
giving it a
but
modern look, splitting it up into two different
don't hate it.
sections. I think it's a decent stadium. I've got it at number 14. Number 13 is Lone Depot Park. This is probably the hardest stadium to rank just because there is
Weird.
such a lack of atmosphere. I still don't even think the Miami Marlins have hosted a playoff game at Lone Depot Park, which was formerly Marlins Park. And unfortunately, this one also does suffer the same fate as most retractable
So
roof
weird.
stadiums. It is virtually always closed, although this one takes it to a crazy degree to where it's legitimately closed about 99% of the time. You'll be lucky if it's open 2 times a year because of the rogue rain showers and the humidity in Miami during the summer. The exterior of this stadium
It's
is the
strange.
most futuristic looking in the league. Beautiful. The landscaping is amazing with all of the tropical plants surrounding it. I will
I
say
don't
when
agree
they
with it being
changed the name
beautiful.
to Lone Depot Park and added that tacky purple to the roof, that really turned me off. They've also done some interior renovations, taken out the sculpture, the fish tank right behind home plate. Really not a fan of those, but this is a very nice futuristic stadium. Unfortunately, it does suffer significantly from a lack of atmosphere and environment
It's like there's
due to
nothing.
poor attendance. It comes in at number 13. At number 12, it is Truist Park, the second newest stadium in MLB, home of the Atlanta Braves,
This one's cool.
located in Cumberland County, Georgia. Kind of out of the way. There was some criticism for where this stadium was built, but it's been a complete hit. And they've got the beautiful battery there, kind of the connector, which really kicked off the craze to build these stadium districts in MLB. there's really nothing negative I can say about this stadium. It's modern, it's sleek, it's clean. There's nothing crazy unbelievable about it. It doesn't have the legendary status that some of the ones in the top 10 have, but this is one I could see aging very gracefully.
It doesn't look
staying within
much
the top
different to me for the
15
Yankee
for
one,
the
but
next
the
20
Yankees
to
just got
30
more
years.
boards here.
It's
That's
built
it.
really well.
So
Moving
how's
on
this
to number
better than the
11 is
Yankees?
Target Field, the smallest stadium, at least according to footprint, in MLB. It's got a beautiful marble tan exterior,
strange shit in the middle.
with a smaller upper deck.
Nothing
really
to
like
be
as
here
well.
and
This
here.
is a relatively new stadium built in 2010. It's always played as a pitcher's park, and my only real criticism of this stadium was where the camera bay was located for Minnesota Twins home games. It was really bad, but they fixed that
doesn't
about
look
4
too
or 5
bad like
years
that.
ago. I don't know if you guys
I don't
remember
mind
that, but it was
That's okay.
it was like so high up and it looked terrible. It was like completely different from every other MLB stadium, but other than that, there's really nothing wrong with this one. Very solid. It comes in at number 11. And moving on to my top 10 stadiums in 2024 at number 10, it is the legendary Dodger Stadium. Certainly, you can have a criticism. You can say, well, if you look at the design of it, it's old. It was built in 1963, but they gave it a nice remodel. They completely changed out the bleacher seats, redid them.
I don't mind it because it's got a lot of spaces here for people. Then you've got whatever that is, I believe.
Kind of matching the beach with the blue and the tan to match
the whole
the
thing
water
looks
and the sand.
cool.
Very cool thing. You also do have the idea that it seats 56,000, which is so rare in today's world.
Yeah, so that's like a batting cage or whatever.
Legendary for me. It comes
that's
in
fine.
At
that's
number
also
10.
like a walkout, maybe.
At number 9, it is Citizens Bank Park. Very clean, very cool. Love the design with kind of like the 45-degree angled where the upper deck and lower bowls end at. That's really only seen at Citizens Bank Park. It makes the stadium stand out. You do also have the split upper deck look and just smaller decks in general. The stadium, when it sells out, looks really good. Just because there's 3 smaller decks stacked on top of each other in right field, it looks so cool. And then you do also have a beautiful center field design with kind of like a nature landscape thing out there. And then to the right of that, you have the bullpens complete.
You think that looks beautiful? It's fucking 4 brick walls and probably fake grass. To me, that doesn't look beautiful. That's cool that you can see the skyline. That is very cool. That to me is not.
Completely out of the picture, barely even shown, almost like disregarded, which is exactly what you want. You want as minimal amount of bullpen as possible. And they did a great job with Citizens Bank Park, almost putting them behind the stands out in right center. This stadium comes in at number 9. At number 8, it is PNC Park. Amazing.
That's very cool.
Right on the Allegheny.
Very, very
cool.
If
you've seen stadium rankings, I'm sure people are pretty surprised that PNC is not inside of my top 5. I just don't see anything overly remarkable about this stadium other than the nice view of the city. I understand that, but
how's that not remarkable?
I don't know. I think it's a solid stadium.
I think you're a fucking dickhead.
Top 5, and I didn't have it in my top 5 last year either. It comes in at number 8. Moving on to number 7, it is Oriole Park at Camden.
That looks the same as the one before.
Obviously, Utah Street, the warehouse, super cool. Super
the
unique.
only cool thing is
you
can see the city.
This stadium get a big renovation in a few
Yep.
years. They've been talking about possibly around a $300 million one, maybe change out some of those seats in the left field upper
He's like
deck.
the bricks, don't you? You really like the bricks outdoor.
As Progressive Field and Coors Field.
That looks like another one that he's already been shown.
Stadiums have seen renovations, but when it comes to Oriole Park at Camden Yards, you've got the cool factor of it. With Utah Street and the massive brick warehouse, it's a top 10 MLB
He likes bricks.
stadium.
He likes bricks.
And it comes in at number 7 for me. At number 6, it is Busch Stadium. One word I would use to describe Busch Stadium, clean.
Yeah.
And by the way, it perfectly fits the St. Louis Cardinals. Kind of a no-nonsense, traditional, beautiful stadium. And it just always comes off as very clean. The interior, the brick exterior.
He likes
the way
bricks.
They've built up that area out in
that is cool.
With
I like that.
And there's a pool out there. Just the community aspect of it.
I don't get this. What is it? You're gonna need to explain it in the comments. I don't understand why this is here. This, to me, this stuff here in every single stadium doesn't make sense to me.
Such a nice stadium. And I do think it's very
Just
underrated.
weird.
I would say this is probably the most underrated stadium in MLB right now. That's why it comes in at number 6 for me in my 2024 stadium rankings. Moving on to my top 5. At number 5, it is the legendary Wrigley Field. It's kind of hard to leave this one anywhere lower than top 5. And for me, after the modernization this stadium had in 2015, where they replaced all of the bleachers, they put up those
Okay,
2
that one's cool. I do
massive
like this one.
scoreboards. It's a beautiful stadium. My only real negative with this one would actually be a negative for a few of the older stadiums. It's just kind of the way the seating is done. It's very older and obsolete, but I can understand why people would like that. It's almost like a time capsule to look back, and just the way the lower bowl is designed. They wouldn't design it like that nowadays, but I could understand the location of Wrigley Field, so unique, right within a neighborhood, and it's a top 5 stadium at number 5. It is one of the most legendary ballparks in baseball. At number 4, it is Coors Field. Coors Field has a crazy amount of interesting factors. You do have the center field
He likes
batter's eye
trees.
area
He
right
likes
next
trees.
to the bullpens, kind of a nature preserve area with a little pond.
Oh,
Above that, you've got the rock.
I just don't worry about commenting it. I just figured it out. So that the ball doesn't mesh into people's eye. The ball doesn't mesh into people's clothing, and like so that when they're looking at it, okay. I just clicked to why. Because the ball's coming. If there's someone wearing a white shirt, you're not going to see the ball. That makes a lot of sense now.
Rock pile with bleacher seating way out in center field. You've got the new rooftop bar, the renovation back in 2013 up in the right field upper deck with like 3 different bar
I don't mind
areas
it.
and multiple like brick buildings up
He
in
loves
the right
brick.
field upper deck. Of course, another factor with this ballpark is how offensive oriented it is. It is a huge ballpark, but based on the thin air, I mean, there's always 100 runs scored every game, it seems like. It is a really, really nice stadium, and it comes in at number 4. At number 3, it is Petco Park in San Diego, California. The best weather in MLB. Very clean design, underrated renovation they did to the left field second deck, where they took some of the seats out and put in a few standing room areas. It looks a lot better now. In right field, you've got a very unique second deck that's kind of angled off in a weird way. That's very
But it looks like it's built for a baseball field.
These interesting towers that kind of cut into the upper deck. That's another cool factor to it. Petco Park, very professional.
I don't mind it.
Extremely impressive stadium. It comes in at number 3. And how can I forget the Western Metal Supply building? They built around it when they were building this ballpark. Moving on to number 2, it is Oracle Park, home of the San Francisco Giants. The location,
that makes sense.
To the water, watching the sunset, looking way out across the bay and seeing the lights on the other side during night games.
That is very cool.
It's just amazing for this stadium. You know, I would love to see, and they would never do this, play a sunrise game as the sun is rising on the water. I just think that'd be amazing. But obviously, no one would go to that. It'd be too early. But this is a great stadium nonetheless. They did have a crazy sellout streak from, I want to say, like 2010 to 2017, where they were like second in all of MLB in history in terms of total sellouts. There's just no way I couldn't have this inside of my top 10. It's just based off of the location. With it right on the water, it is such an amazing spot. Although I will say I don't like the center field bullpen renovations. When bullpens are directly in center field, it just looks off to me. I'm not a fan of that. But I'm not going to ding it too much just because the location is so amazing. And then number 1, the best stadium in baseball in 2024. Of course, it has to be Fenway Park. Fenway Park is just the perfect mixture of everything. It's legendary. They've modernized it enough. They add the monster seats. They extend the upper deck. It truly is the one MLB stadium to age backwards. They wanted to replace Fenway back in the late 1990s because the capacity was too small. Well, now having a capacity of 38,000 is exactly where you want to be with the smaller upper deck. You've got the pesky pole, you've got the green monster, you've got the triangle in right center, you've got all that weird seating configuration out beyond the bullpens, you know, where it kind of caves in at an angle. Fenway Park is the best stadium in baseball. It was number 1 last year for me. It's number 1 this year. Guys, those are my official MLB 20.
I don't like him. I think he's weird. Yeah, he's a weird. Yeah. But like, when you're looking at this, like, this to me just doesn't make sense. Having this shit makes zero sense to me. Having the city in the background, that is very cool. I'll just quickly show you the stadium that we play our football in. Not the greatest quality, but this is Adelaide Oval. This is where we play our football. So this is our field, and we have like this. To me is this is cool. Like you got the city in the background. So our train station, that's Adelaide train station, and trains go through that way. All the train stuff there. So the train station comes in, get in from the city. You can go to the city. You walk. There's a bridge. I believe it's here or here. There's a bridge somewhere along. Yeah, I reckon that should be it. That's the road. Yeah, that's the bridge. Walk over the bridge to the stadium. Everything within the stadium. So this is the full stadium. This is the oldest stadium in Australia, I believe. From 1850s, I want to say, and we've recently renovated it. You can have a look. This is from what we call the scoreboard. So the scoreboard's back here. It's the original scoreboard from the original stadium. But this is 55,000 people in this one. And then you've got the MCG. So this is the MCG, Melbourne Cricket Ground. So that's the Eureka Tower. That's the highest observation deck in the Southern Hemisphere. It's small in the rest of the world, but I think it's like 250 meters. The whole entire state, this can seat over 100,000 people, I believe. And like everything is within the stadium. All right. And there's no brick. Brick to me is weird. The fact that you have bricks. So this is Adelaide. And that's Melbourne. It's just weird to me that you just have those stadiums that are like this. Look at the stadium. And then look at this. To me, it's just strange. Strange stadiums. Cool views, but strange stadiums.